Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me and thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to be able to share something I'm passionate about today, and that's using technology, including ServiceNow, to empower people to do digital, to transform their own world. In BP, we call it our digital system of work. So a little bit about me first then. So I'm Roddy Barnes. I am the head of IT strategy and planning at BP. I've been in BP for, let's say, a long time. I've led ITIL implementations, I've done big project delivery, I've run ops teams, and more recently I've led IT strategy, planning and transformation, first for our trading arm and now across BP. But first and foremost, I'm an enthusiast. So I'm an enthusiast for what technology can do for a company and for people. It's all about digital transformation these days, right? But digital transformation, I think, only works if it's really about empowering your people to lead that transformation themselves. You just can't do it to them. Everybody has to be able to play an active part. I like to say everyone's an IT professional now. It's not just some kind of white-coated class of geeks. Everyone's in IT these days. So in the next 20 minutes, I will try and do three things. I'll give you a bit of context about BP, so you know why this is so important to us. I'll talk a bit about our journey, both with ServiceNow and as an IT department. And I will set out, I suppose, my recipe for success in IT transformation. This is how we see it. So first of those things, and a little bit of context, a little bit about BP. You'll know BP, it's one of the world's largest oil and gas companies, but that's set to change. We've got a new CEO as of February, and he's launched an extraordinary, frankly, wholesale reinvention of BP. We're moving from an IOC to an EOC, and what that means is traditionally BP and the other super majors are called international oil companies. And what we're moving is to being an integrated energy company. So it sounds like a tiny difference. It's an extraordinary transformation of a 110-year-old company. It's never changed anything like this before. It starts with a very radical ambition, which is to be carbon neutral by 2050. And we've got the first 10 years of that strategy recently launched, and that includes some of the things you can see here on the screen, right? That includes reducing oil and gas production by 40%, investing 10 times as much as $5 billion in renewables, and developing 50 gigawatts of renewable capacity. If you know anything about this industry, then you'll know that is crazy. That is just extraordinary. So it's a time of radical transformation at BP. I believe we're leading the industry in this. I think we're making the running, frankly, at the moment. It's a massively energizing, exciting place to be, and frankly, scary, of course. So you can probably guess, right? IT and digital are going to play a big role in that. I go so far as to say, we can't do that transformation without our digital transformation going along with it, and that's about developing new digital-first business models, and it's also about getting more efficient, more safe, more reliable at the way we generate, deliver, trade, and sell energy. So IT digital, absolutely crucial to this journey, and getting more so, frankly. So, the old way of doing IT, which is a large IT department running big monolithic applications, which change slowly over time in response to a set of customer requirements, it just ain't gonna work. So we realized, I guess, early on that we needed to be much quicker to value. We need to try things quickly, cheaply. If they don't work, throw them away. Don't cry over it. If they work, be able to scale them, quickly, efficiently, safely, securely. We needed to democratize digital. So I talked at the beginning, everyone's an IT professional now. So our employees, they're scientists, they're engineers, they're marketers, they're traders. They're increasingly digitally savvy. They expect more. They expect to be able to do stuff for themselves. They don't want to go to an IT person and then a year later get a shonky application they didn't really want. They expect to have a go themselves. They probably want some help, but they want to have a go at this stuff themselves in days. So quicker to value, democratizing digital, and for us, number one is always keeping the company safe and its operations reliable. These are some non-optional things that really matter to us. Now, this stuff isn't just about transforming the IT department, but it's a necessary condition, right? We've got to do that in order for us to be effective in this pretty extraordinary challenge that we've got ahead of us. So to try and boil this down, hugely complex, changing environment coming at us. We did a persona-based look at this. I'm sure many of you have done the same sort of thing. And we focused a lot on this guy, this digital product manager. Once upon a time, he would probably have been a traditional IT manager, right, running some apps for a business. But the way we're inventing him, and his job is changing, is he's becoming a genuine product manager. He is building, running, enabling and selling, in some form of selling, a bunch of digital products to some people. And those people could be in BP, or they could be our customers or our partners. It's a very different job for him, for that person. So we talked a lot about this guy and how he can be successful, and you can see some of the things there that we came up with, and from these discussions, it's really clear that they need to be able to have a sort of situational awareness, a real-time situational awareness. They need to know what all their stuff is, where it is, and how it's performing. They need to know how well they're delivering. They need to know how well they're running. They need to know what it's costing. Those things, have traditionally been, on a quarterly cycle, frankly, inconsistent and hard to compare with your peers. So we really wanted the ability for this guy to have all his stuff in one place, be able to compare it with his peers, and for it to be, live in real time. If you're this guy, you've got you've been given a very different job and a huge challenge, and so we saw the route into this digital transformation is enabling him to be successful. It's the way we started, right? It's where I started this conversation. It's about enabling our people to be the people doing digital transformation. That's what this is all about. So we boiled these thoughts, I suppose, down into three things that we wanted to hold true. So 3 aims and 3 kind of belief statements, I suppose, really. And they're these ones on the screen here. It's about connecting people. Traditionally how an IT department thinks of itself, right? It thinks of itself as an org chart. That's the people, and it thinks of itself as a kind of layered technical model, the IT tower, right? Neither of those actually are your operating model or represent what you actually do. They're both a very crude representation. The reality always has been, and is even more so now, is that you are an interconnected, interdependent network of products and services. No one can deliver without someone else. The line of business application can't deliver without email, without its integration capability, without platforms, without networks. It's all interdependent. Everyone depends on everybody else, and that realization for us a couple of years ago was a kind of lightning bolt. That the ability to represent our IT department not as these towers and boxes, but as a network, a network of thousands of nodes. Embrace the complexity. Don't try and hide the complexity of your world. Embrace it. It means you've got to model it properly, and that's what we use ServiceNow for. Is coming up with a really strong single underpinning data model that holds everything together. Everything refers to that one data model, one way of doing things, one single data model. Now it has some quite interesting implications, actually. One of which is transparency. One of which is, once you can compare apples with apples, once everybody's in the same data model, in the same system of record, I can compare how I'm doing with my budget to how my friend is doing, and I can compare how much work is in my backlog, and what my time to value is, how quickly I'm delivering story points, with the guy down the corridor. It's terrifying, right? Or it's really exciting. Either way, I think it's good for business. I can, and I'm doing that in real time. I don't wait until the boss calls us all together and says, you're doing well, you're not doing well. I know how I'm doing. I can course correct, I can change. That's really, really powerful. And it comes from understanding your world as this network. So that's connecting our people. Building in flexibility. So organizations change, right? Particularly those of you that work for big corporates. You have a reorg every year or two, frankly. But for some reason, we never acknowledge that when we're building our systems and processes. We kind of hard code our structures into our processes and our systems of work. So we were absolutely determined that we would have a robust operating model, but a flexible one that expects to change. So that network changes every day. It changes the fact that someone provides some product to someone else, that stuff changes all the time. And then every so often, like we're going through at the moment as it happens, everything changes and all the structures are different and the products change. The underlying IT assets don't immediately change. You map those in the right places. That's what we're trying to build here. So that's flexibility. Again, the interesting implication of that is it's the control, it's this ability for our product manager friend there to make his changes in real time, for him to, if he wants to sit in the pub of an evening and make changes to his product set, to what his offerings are, what the cost of them is, to adjust how he does business. So that's building flexibility. The third one then is automate everything, or as I like to think of it, automate the hell out of everything. I'm sure you're all on this journey, right? Automation takes out cost, of course. That's really important. It's doing it for us. We operate a really lean IT shop these days because we've automated an awful lot. But it also does something else. It opens up the possibility of self-service. And I talked earlier about those scientists and traders and marketers who want to do their own stuff. We want everyone to be able to build their own Power App, or do their own data analysis in Power BI, or build their own machine learning model. We want them to be able to collaborate effectively. Stuff that was unheard of for a non-IT professional to do just a couple of years ago. This stuff moves quick, doesn't it? So we needed, as well as the ability for our product manager there, who's broadly an IT guy, we needed everybody else to be able to have something of the same experience. So that meant automation, first and foremost, an automation engine. It meant a really nice front door. It meant real robustness, because if you're letting everybody loose, you need to be really sure that this thing holds together well. And it needs an interface that is easy to pick up and easy to use. You can't have a sort of poorly thought out user experience that maybe an IT guy would put up with when you're opening it up to 80,000 employees. So that's a really interesting corollary of automation that just isn't just about cost. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. This connecting our people, flexibility from the ground up, and a deep focus on automation. Let me show you a little bit about what that actually looks like. So what is this system of work thing that I keep talking about? It's an IT operating model, instantiated in ServiceNow, Azure DevOps, and a few other systems. It's that IT operating model of this network of products and services made real, and we've built in those principles we talked about: the connection, the flexibility, the automation, and we've tied it together. Crucially, if you take nothing else from this, then it's this: a common data model, a common system of record. If you don't have that, if you're not comparing apples with apples, if you're not talking the same terms, if you're managing your DR risk in a different paradigm to how you are doing your agile delivery, you can never knit them together. You're forever trying to match things that don't quite match. So incredibly key to get a common data model. Take your time, build it out really well. It took us a year, frankly, to build that well. And then around it, if you see the square on the outside, it's an API layer which we built in ServiceNow. It's an automation engine which we built in ServiceNow. Those two things enable us to do all those joins, the seamless joins between a whole bunch of different systems and applications that are part of this, and it enables us to start that automation journey. It's taken us about 3 years to get this kind of to this point. It's by no means finished. We started with IT service management, so the operations quadrant there in the diagram you can see that was about 3 years ago. And the final one of these big blocks went in this year, which was the financials using the ServiceNow IT business management module. We've really enjoyed working with ServiceNow, stretching what the product can do, frankly. I think we've surprised the ServiceNow product teams a few times in terms of oh, can it do that? That's interesting. We really like the flexibility of the platform for that sort of stuff. We've built 50 or 60 applications in ServiceNow in support of this that are within that diagram that you can see on the screen there. Think back to our product manager guy, right? So all those things he wanted to do, they're pretty much those bullets there now. So in real time, on his own, no approvals, no process that he can see, no administration, he can go and do all those things. He can look at stuff, he can see how he's performing, and as a result, he can then make actual changes in real time. He can move people. That's a really interesting one actually. So last year we went live with the people element. So we run a sort of professions model where every IT professional is in a profession. So data and analytics, or project delivery, or software engineering, that sort of thing, and they are deployed to where the work is. And they might be deployed for a month, or 6 months, or 12 months, or 5 years, but they're honed in a profession, and they're deployed into some activity. To manage that supply and demand, which is 2,000 people in the IT department, needing to match supply and demand, we use ServiceNow, and that's been really interesting. Just actually doing that stuff again, it could be a huge administrative burden. You could have dozens of people administering that stuff on spreadsheets. Instead, there's one guy who deals with problems, basically. So the heads of profession do that supply and demand. So I'm the head of the strategy and planning profession. And so when someone needs a planner, I will see who there is, see when they're available, and I will deploy that in ServiceNow. It takes me 5 minutes, and that's really nice. It means I'm in control. I don't have to wait to be told how it's doing, and there's nobody else but me doing it. It's not costing anything. Some real power there. The development quadrant, as you can see, is Azure DevOps. That's what we use for running our agile sprints, for the start of our managing our CI/CD pipelines, where we do our backlogs and our stories, etc. The key is you could kind of link anything into here. The point is, as long as you are using the common data model, that's the bullet in the middle there, the CMDB at the bottom, traditional CMDB of all our IT assets, linked together with the services and products model that I've talked about. It's the join that's the magic sauce, really. It really doesn't matter. The funny thing is whether someone actually uses the ServiceNow UX. ServiceNow spent a lot of money recently making their UX better. It's a lot better. Honestly, I don't care if someone touches ServiceNow or not. Everybody does, in truth. But if someone wants to use their own planning tool, which they find a better way of planning their investment, as long as it uses my APIs and writes data back, it reads data from my master data, my reference data, and then writes back in. Good on you. That's absolutely fine by me. The actual use, not more important. The system of record, the APIs, the data model, that's what really matters for me. That's where the HR things we need right now. The server in the middle is forever. That's the thing that resists. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you see what these systems work in some ways. It's a slightly hard concept to get across, but I hope you can see the point of it, and you see some of the difference that's making. So what's it done for us? There's clearly, I think I've said, it's not just about this, right? It's not just about this system of work. There's a whole organizational transformation happening. There's a whole culture change happening. We're radically changing IT and digital, and also the whole company. But I think this is an important part of it. It's helped us take out a huge amount of cost through, primarily, as we talked about, through automation. We are quicker to value. We are delivering in days, not years. Frankly, it's that kind of difference, and a lot of that is to do with agile practices and DevOps, which we've adopted wholesale. But it's also about how you join that stuff up, and that's what this is all about. And it's about automating again. It's about automating just boring processes and getting rid of them, and we're more reliable. And I genuinely think you can square that circle, right? You can, getting this right with a combination of modern approaches to delivery and operations, joined together in the right way like this. You can square the circle of, you can be cheaper, and you can be quicker, and you can be more reliable. I genuinely don't think there's a trade-off there these days. I talked a little bit about how we're going through a reorg right now, and that's the big test. It's working, right? It's actually working. So this is the test. The whole lot changes right now. We have a new organizational model for the IT department on July the 1st. I sat down with a colleague of mine when the organization changes were announced, and we had a go at modeling it in a different instance of ServiceNow. It took us about 3 or 4 hours. And we thought that's a pretty good first go at the new model of the IT department, how all our IT assets are owned, changed, how all our products and services set had changed, or at least where they sat and where they were owned and delivered had changed. And we modelled it in about 3 or 4 hours. Honestly, that's like 6 months work. If we hadn't had what we've got here, that's 6 months really deeply unpleasant work. So we were pretty thrilled, frankly, that was, that the big test, the big test was passed. Challenges, certainly. I guess one I'll bring out is, not everyone wants to do their own work. Not everyone wants to do this. Some of those product managers, to take the same persona, thought it was beneath them, frankly, to, they expect to be given they're big, important IT managers. They expect to be given a PowerPoint every quarter telling them what's going on. And now we're saying, no, you've got to be on top of your numbers in real time. You've got to make changes yourself. Some of them, frankly, see it as an administrative burden. I think it's time they changed. Frankly, I don't think that works anymore. I think, that's the effort and the pain and the inefficiency that old method causes is not supportable anymore. You just have to run leaner. This stuff doesn't work on a quarterly basis anymore. It works on a daily, hourly basis. So absolutely, this stuff is hard, right? All change is hard, clearly. But where we've got it really singing, it makes a massive difference. It's really cool. That's it, really. I hope that's given you a little flavour of what we've been trying to do. We're still on this journey. We've got a lot to learn still, and we've got a lot to do still. I hope you can tell this is really, really exciting, right? I mean, this is, for someone who's been around the ops and service management space for a long time, this feels different. It feels like a different place to work. It feels like a different level of energy. I've not talked about process in this conversation, right? So we don't feel like we're overburdened with insufferable process. We feel like we're masters of our own fates, frankly. It's almost the exact words, actually. A really hard-bitten service manager, I think he was a change manager, said to me a year or so ago, once we'd got the core of this in, was, look, in 30 years of running change management ITIL processes, or various other sorts of change process, I've never felt empowered. I've never felt like I own the process and it works for me and lets me use my professional judgment, and now I do. Now I feel like I own my process. I change my process at the right time because I'm accountable for it. I take that accountability and I do the best job I can by delivering the right process and running it in the right way. That's pretty cool, right? That's all you want to hear when you do this stuff, is someone telling you that. Because think how much of a better job they're going to do when they feel empowered. They feel accountable. They don't feel like, I executed the process and that was fine, so I'll go home now. Amazing transformation. It feels like it's fun, I guess, is the thing. We've really enjoyed building this stuff. It's a very relatively small team of us that have done this. We've done it in-house, by the way. Some ServiceNow's help, but this is 99% done in-house by our own people. Yeah, it's really good, really energizing, really exciting. I hope that's taught you something. Like I say, we've got a lot to learn too, right? So if anybody wants to get in touch, please do. I'd really like to talk to you about your journeys, whether you're earlier in the journey than us or further on the journey than us. Just let's share some learnings. This stuff really works well when you collaborate on it. So I hope that's interesting. I hope you can see my enthusiasm for this stuff. Do get in touch, and thanks so much for listening.